A very good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. Today is the 31st of March 2023. For the Newsfirst team, I am Jama Ratnayaka. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Several activists detained by police during Maihan protest. Anti-terrorism bill to Parliament during third week of April.
තුන්වෙනි සතියේ න්‍යාය පත්‍රයට ඇතුළත් කොට දින නියම කර ගැනීමක් කර එයට පෙර ආතුව එම සාකච්ඡා අදාළ අමාත්‍යවරුන්ට ආරම්භ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
UN Human Rights Report urges Sri Lanka to repeal PTA. Kanchana Vijayasekara wants CID investigation on those who tried to sabotage petroleum terminal operations. Trade unions to take legal action against sending striking workers on compulsory leave. Sri Lanka is also facing a significant external financing gap over the IMF program period. Sri Lanka introduces STEAM education system to school.
In tonight's top story, several activists were detained by police during a protest in Maihan earlier today.
Several activists from the Aragale protested at Jubilee Post in Maihan. Three people, including activist Anuruddha Bandara, Danis Ali, were detained by police. Thereafter, Sri Lanka police took measures to disperse the group. Thereafter, the detained activists were released after recording statements.
Today marks 1 year of the Maihan protest, where people driven to desperation by the country's economic condition protested in front of then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's private residence. On the 31st of March 2022, people who were driven to desperation by the country's economic state gathered around and protested in front of then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's residence, demanding his resignation. This led to one of the biggest movements created in the history of Sri Lanka, which led to the 9th of April 2022, the beginning of the Aragalaya. How has this incident made an expected change in Sri Lanka? Newsfirst spoke to some of the people who participated in the Maihan protest on the 31st of March 2022. Here is what they had to say.
The protest at Maihan happened exactly 1 year ago. This was a culmination of the protest that actually started on the 1st of March. Thereafter, protests started all over the country. This was people asking for system change. 1 year down the line, how much has changed? There have been changes, yes.
Self and our silent vigil team, the Liberty Circle and all of this, we were just protesting, holding board, catching all those torch lights, and we were just doing the basic protest. But it was so terrible. No, there was gas queues, there were fuel queues, power cuts. They just wanted something changed. There was that much of they were under that much of stress. But that Maihan, which happened last year, that was one turning point, I would say. There, from there onwards, the student bodies, the unions, like everything started to form very strongly.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena says that the new proposed anti-terrorism bill will be presented to Parliament during the third parliamentary week of the month of April.
Sri Lankan Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena visited the temple of the sacred tooth relic in Kandy on Friday morning and paid reverence.
ඒ පිළිබඳ විවිධ විවේචනයන් තිබෙනවා. ඒවා සාකච්ඡාවට පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරු සමග සාකච්ඡා කොට ඒ වාගේම එම අයිතිවාසිකයන් නියෝජනය කරන මහජන සංවිධාන සමගද සාකච්ඡා කොට තමයි සම්මත කරනු ලබන්නේ.
ලබන සතියේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු රැස්වීමට ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමට කටයුතු කරනවාද?
4 වෙනිදා න්‍යාය පත්‍රයට තාම ඇතුළත් කරලා නැහැ.
It was not included in the agenda on the 4th of April. We will meet again in the third week of April. Then we will finalize when it will be included to the agenda, and before that the ministers can commence discussions on the matter.
එම සාකච්ඡා අදාළ අමාත්‍යවරුන්ට ආරම්භ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
දැන් අපි දන්නවා සැලකිය යුතු මහජන විරෝධතාවය.
There is considerable opposition towards the mandateless President Ranil Wickremesinghe administration. If the government is to crack down on these protests, they need laws that are stricter than the existing ones. That is the anti-terrorism bill that is catered to the government's needs. This also covers social media. If journalists, intellectuals and professionals maintain views against him, this can be used to arrest them, citing the need for an investigation. This is not done to ensure democracy.
මේක ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ තහවුරු කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගැසට් එකද කිසිසේත්ම නැහැ.
ත්‍රස්තවාදී වළක්වීම පනතේ නව පනත කියලා කියනවා. හරි නම මොකද්ද නම් රාජ්‍ය ත්‍රස්ත.
We have the Prevention of Terrorism Act. It should be renamed as the State Terrorism Act. What they have presented to Parliament is one that contains more crime and dictatorship. This government is insane. There is no terrorism right now. What we have is political parties, groups, trade unions and institutions that voice against the government. This bill is to be used to target them under the guise of anti-terrorism. The right to detain a person has been lowered to the rank of DIG. This can be used to ban any institution, political group and trade union. This bill has been introduced to impose threats and incite fear. I urge the President not to make a mistake. If you are trying to bring this forward because you don't agree with the view of those who oppose you, we will stand against it.
ඒකට තමයි පනත කියලා තියෙන්නේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට කියනවා කර්ණකල වරද ගන්න එපා. දඟකාර විදියට මේ විදිය පනත කියනවා නම් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම විරුද්ධ වෙනවා.
Hirunika Premachandra, assuming duties as the chairperson of the All Island Samagi Private Employees Union, commented on the proposed anti-terrorism bill.
At a time when there is no terrorism in the country, this anti-terrorism bill is being moved to crack down on the trade unions in the country, the opposition groups, and to prevent the people from taking to the streets. He is going beyond Hitler's role and is trying to bring back Batalanda. If anyone supports this in Parliament, they are the real terrorists. With this anti-terrorism bill, a person can be arrested without any question or warrant and can be held for even a year. Thereafter, cases can be filed every 3 months. The 43rd Brigade convened a media briefing in Colombo.
විශේෂයෙන් වෘත්තීය සමිති වලටත් අපි කාරුණික ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
I urge the trade unions to refrain from engaging in acts that would further burden the people of the country. The people managed to chase away one of the most powerful governments in the country. The people did not look at the trade unions in the same manner. We strongly emphasized that you cannot intimidate the people by using the IMF, government collapse, cost of living, suspending services and trade union action. You need to be wise and engage in such activities.
සිදු කළ යුතු දෑ කියන එක අපි අවධාරණය.
அது இன்னும் மோசமான ஒரு சட்டமாகத்தான்.
It is certainly a dangerous law since it curtails media freedom. It might impede the freedom of journalists. Apart from being an affront to democracy, the president and his government plans to use this to defuse any attempts by the youth to launch an uprising or an aragalaya. We request citizens of all ethnicities to support us in standing against this bill.
இந்த சட்டத்தை எதிர்க்க வேண்டும் என்ற கோரிக்கையை நான் முன்வைக்கின்றேன்.
The UN Human Rights Committee issued its concluding observations following the review of Sri Lanka's 6th periodic report under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights.
UN Human Rights Committee identified 2 priority issues for the government to address, namely the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka and counter-terrorism measures. With regard to the HRCSL, the UN Human Rights Committee called on the government to ensure that the body fully complies with the Paris Principles, ensure transparency in the appointment process of its members, and provide sufficient resources to carry out its mandate effectively and independently in all parts of the country. With regard to counter-terrorism measures, the UN Human Rights Committee called on the government to repeal the PTA and replace it with legislation that contains a narrow definition of terrorism and is compliant with the ICCPR. It also called to ensure that the legislative process for enacting a new anti-terrorism or national security law is inclusive and transparent and facilitates participation of a wide range of stakeholders. It said that Sri Lanka must ensure that those suspected or charged with terrorist acts or related crimes are provided with legal safeguards in line with Article 9 of the ICCPR and facilitate independent monitoring of all places of detention to inspect the situation of those detained under the PTA. Overall, the CCPR made over 60 recommendations to the government and requested it provide information on steps taken towards the implementation of the committee's recommendations on the 3 above referenced priority issues by March 2026.
The Professional Trade Union Collective said that it would meet on Monday to decide on future course of action against the government's new tax regime. The decision was reached at a meeting on Friday as the president was yet to respond for an opportunity to discuss the matter.
An attempt is being made to introduce an anti-terrorism bill. The Gazette was published. This bill is introduced to take away the rights of the people and trade unions to express their views freely. It is taking away the rights to engage in protest marches. They are drafting the restrictions. Everyone agreed to bring their struggles to one place. We will not allow the Ranil Rajapaksa government to continue like this. They must be prepared to step down with all their associates. That is our message.
Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara has requested the IGP to conduct an investigation via the Criminal Investigations Department against individuals who disrupted the process of distributing fuel from the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited in Colonial on the 28th of March.
A letter to the IGP notes that a group that engaged in a fast opposite the CPSTL premises forced their way into the safe zone where fuel distribution was taking place and chased away the employees. In addition, the group had also turned back the fuel tankers that arrived to obtain their consignment of fuel. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara also noted that an attempt was made to damage the fuel distribution pipes and the automated system in order to disrupt the fuel distribution process, which was declared as an essential service. The letter notes that among those who stormed the premises were trade union representatives, employees on leave after submitting nominations to contest the local government election, as well as retired petroleum workers. The ministry notes, as a result of the act of sabotage, the fuel distribution process was disrupted, leading to the formation of fuel queues. He noted that legal measures are being taken to recover the losses from the said individuals.
Chairman of the Petroleum General Employees Union, Dr. Ashoka Ranwala, says legal action will be taken against the decision to send trade union members who engaged in the strike on compulsory leave and restricting them from entering their workplaces. He said A complaint will be lodged with the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka as a preliminary step of this process. The HRCSL also confirmed that a group of trade union leaders arrived at 4 p.m. yesterday to lodge a complaint. However, chairman of the petroleum branch of the Sri Lanka General Employees Union, Jagat Vijay Gunaratne, a trade union leader who also participated in the strike, says attempts will be made to remove restrictions through dialogue.
We believe we have the ability to discuss this matter with the subject minister and resolve it. When a trade union struggle is carried out, there are instances when discussions are necessary. We believe now is the opportune time for it.
Meanwhile, Bandula Saman Kumara, the chairman of the Podujana Progressive Employees Union of the CPC, which is the trade union arm of the Podujana Peramuna, has switched off his mobile since yesterday. He is also among those that were sent on compulsory leave and has been restricted from entering his workplace at the CPC. Gamini Lokuge, the chairman of the same trade union, claimed that Bandula Saman Kumara had not even informed him before launching the strike.
He is disappointed because they toiled hard to bring the government to power.
According to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, disciplinary inquiries on the 20 employees who have been sent on compulsory leave on allegations of engaging in the strike will commence from Monday. It says fuel distribution at the CPC is currently underway as usual. The supply of fuel was delayed earlier this week after trade unions launched a strike, opposing a move to allow foreign suppliers to enter the local petroleum market. The CPC says fuel distribution is currently underway with Triforces and police providing security. Despite numerous mega development projects being launched in Sri Lanka, there are still communities living in rural Sri Lanka without a dependable source of water. This story from Akurasa is merely one such example.
Members of 25 families in Kurukotakanda, Rambukana, Pitabadara in Akurasa, Matara depend on filtered rainwater to quench their thirst.
We do not have clean water to drink. Even our children drink dirty water. Our only request is to provide the next generation with clean water.
The entire village depends on a small ground well, leading locals to spend hours at the well only to collect a bucket of water from a coconut shell. For daily wage earners such as them, an hour spent near the well is an hour work gone to waste, which means they will lose remuneration from that period. On some days, the well only has water sufficient to fill one pot, compelling others to return home without water. Even toddlers are given the same contaminated water to drink. Locals trek for miles to bathe and wash their clothes. Sourcing water for occasions such as weddings and funerals is near impossible. Their only request is for a dependable supply of water.
The Gammadda research reports were presented to the University of Kelaniya today. The Gammadda research reports, which were produced in collaboration with the University of Peradeniya after walking the length and breadth of Sri Lanka across 5 years, was presented to the Kelaniya University on Friday at the university premises. Vice-Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Professor M.M. Gunatilaka, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor Lal Mervin Dharmasiri, Head of the Department of Geography, Dr. A.G. Amarasinghe, Director of the Research Centre of the Faculty of Social Sciences, and Senior Lecturer Saman Rajapaksha, the Director of the Department of Mass Communication, among others, were present at the event. Shevan Daniel of the Gammadda Movement, Vasantama Singhage, General Secretary of the Gammadda Movement Prasanna Atukorala and Gammadda National Organizer Kenneth Virakodi also attended the presentation. The Gammadda research reports were prepared after gathering data from thousands of towns and villages spread across Sri Lanka and were even produced to a series of leading universities in the world, including Oxford University, UK, and the Brown University, USA. The University of Caledonia aims to use these reports to conduct multiple studies and analysis.
I think as a university where we have worked in isolation perhaps so far and not so much in contact with the community, we can work with media organizations like Sirasa, which have conducted this Gammadda program for a period of many years and collected a lot of very rich information that as a university we can help to look at that data, the information that has been gathered in a systematic manner, analyze it in a scientific manner, and then identify what are the most important problems and figure out solutions that can actually be implemented, and in that process to bring students into the scene, students who will understand that they can support national development directly in order to bring our country to a better position than we are in right now.
In addition to the presentation of the Gammadda research reports, a discussion on cooperation between Gammadda and the University of Caledonia also took place.
News First with the people.
The STEAM education system was introduced to Sri Lanka today.
The STEAM education system was introduced to Sri Lanka and the launch took place at Royal College Colombo to cover the entire Western Province. Education Minister Susil Premajayanta, Professor Ranjit Senaratne, Chairman of the National Science Foundation, ambassadors and diplomats among others joined the event. All other provinces took part in the program via online platforms. STEAM was introduced in the United States of America in 1999 and guides students to take thoughtful risks, engage in experimental learning while covering the syllabus and subject fundamentals. STEAM education is an approach to learning that uses science, technology, engineering, the arts and mathematics that assesses points for guiding students.
We are moving towards a global era of transformation. In certain countries, they are already exploring ways to protect jobs when technology is applied to the workforce. This is what you call research. What about Sri Lanka? Students who need to be studying in the universities instead of seeking knowledge are being attacked by the police with tear gas. This needs to change. Some say that nothing has changed for 75 years. Yes, however, we are in high literacy. We have an issue in the application of our knowledge. Do you assume that other countries grade students based on examinations? This is an issue for students and teachers. There is no end to filling papers. This program will introduce simple activities to achieve the subject fundamentals and principles. No matter at what level a student drops out of school, they will be able to apply this to face social challenges alone. That is the main objective in transforming education.
Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaraveera says if malnutrition gave rise to the disease that spread across farmlands in the recent past, steps will be taken to compensate farmers for it. The minister made these remarks following a meeting with farming and agricultural officers held at the Trincomalee District Secretariat. The event also saw the distribution of TCP fertilizer provided by USAID and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization to farmers. Compensation was provided to a group of farmers as well.
We have
attended to the matter of the disease that was spreading in recent months. If it had occurred due to malnutrition, even farmers should bear a certain responsibility because we even provided 10,000 rupees per hectare and 20,000 rupees for 2 hectares. Certain farmers who received the money had not utilized it. If that is the case, we might be unable to compensate them. But if it is another reason, we wish to provide a concession for it.
This is not the first time ministers have made promises on compensating farmers. Farmers have only been given broken promises by the authorities, from the Sena caterpillar menace to the recent disease that devastated farmlands. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government decided to ban chemical fertilizer and switch to organic fertilizer in an ad hoc manner, disregarding warnings from experts, the then Minister of Agriculture Mahindananda Alutgamage praised this faulty decision, claiming that farmers would be compensated should their cultivation suffer any damages. But no such compensation has been provided to date for the destruction this decision caused to Sri Lanka's agricultural sector. Experts opine the yellow spot disease that plagued paddy lands across the island during the past season was a result of using organic fertilizer. Has a proper estimation been prepared on the damage that was caused? That cultivation season has ended, and farmers are now preparing for another cultivating season. Given the dismal track record on farmers being compensated, can ministers or any responsible official afford to make such claims anymore? Farmers from Rajavava in Ampara are gearing up to cultivate paddy this yellow season after several previous cultivations failed due to the ad hoc fertilizer policy adopted by the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government. Although it was decided by the farmers to commence paddy cultivation before the 10th of April, farmers claim they were not provided with sufficient amounts of fertilizer. The farmers noted that even if the available fertilizer is distributed equally among all farmers, it will still be insufficient.
We did not receive fertilizer for several seasons. Even if we do, it's not on time. We will not be able to add TSP as well. Farmers are quarreling with each other instead of farming. I brought fertilizer from the Agrarian Services Center. This is not enough for 21 acres. We cannot share due to this reason. There is no one to complain to. No one knows about this.
These farmers request that they be provided with sufficient stocks of fertilizer. The symbolic opening of the Korea-Sri Lanka Friendship Hospital took place today.
The Korea-Sri Lanka Friendship Hospital under the Mathura District Maternal and Newborn Healthcare Strengthening Project was symbolically opened on Friday. The government of the Republic of Korea, through the Korea International Cooperation Agency, provided funds to upgrade and renovate the Korea-Sri Lanka Friendship Hospital. The project granted $9 million, which covered the establishment of a new building, renovation of the Korea-Sri Lanka Friendship Hospital and new hospital kitchen.
We have held back some other projects, but with the astute leadership of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, we have been able to work out with our partners overseas, particularly the IMF and all other partners, and we have been able to successfully move forward and to make sure and ensure that the necessary inputs are brought in, necessary activities reactivated, and to make sure that the public of this country, and particularly people in Mathura district, in terms of healthcare, is given the best possible care.
The ambassador stated that Korea considers healthcare to be one of the key priority areas for the granted aid.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shown the necessity to build a resilient and secure health systems globally. Better primary health care is pivotal for improving the quality of life among all communities throughout the world. In this context, Korea considers public health cooperation and development as a top priority, particularly for maternal and the newborn. This project is in particular of a unique nature. It is not only focuses on the infrastructure development of the hospital, enabling its utmost functions of the existing building, but also it enhances the capacity building of medical personnel by sharing relevant knowledge and skills from Korea.
Speaker Mahinda Pabewardena extended his gratitude to the people of Korea and the KOICA for the continued support.
I thank you, the Korean government, and all the people who have set for this, including Mr. Mangala Samaravida, who started this up and who sweat heavily for this purpose.
In addition to the infrastructural development, medical equipment and 2 buses to facilitate shuttle between the Mathura District General Hospital and Korea Sri Lanka Friendship Hospital and capacity building programs for healthcare workers were provided.
Obriara 1.0 International Business Day of the Department of International Business, Faculty of Management and Finance of the University of Colombo took place today.
International Business Day of the Department of International Business, Faculty of Management and Finance of the University of Colombo was organized by the International Business Students Association. The event was attended by students, academics, alumni representatives and corporate leaders. Vice Chancellor at the University of Colombo, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne was the chief guest of the event.
We know each and every employee need a training. That is what Japan is doing. All the time they do training. If we are not doing training, we cannot cope up with the changes happening in the world. Because we all have to accept there are 2 principles in the natural law. One is the diversity. The second is the change. So all we have to respect these 2 rules in the world, and what we learn we have to adapt for these 2 rules, and we need to do innovations. If one can do small innovation, that may lead to a bigger change.
Dr. Kishu Gomez was the guest of honor and the keynote speaker.
The inauguration of Master of Science in Energy for Circular Economy was held at the BMICH in Colombo on Thursday.
The event was chaired by Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the chairman of the University Grants Commission, and was attended by several invitees, including deans from universities, university professors and university staff.
So that we need to understand the source of energy, optimizing energy use, implementing sustainable practices and staying up to date of energy policy and trends. Industry professionals can position themselves for success in a rapidly changing energy landscape.
The MSc in Energy for Circular Economy, offered by 4 local universities including the Open University of Sri Lanka, University of Ruhuna, University of Moratuwa and the University of Peradeniya, commenced today. This is a fully online master's degree program offered for those aspiring for a professional qualification of international standard in the field of energy and circular economy.
On to a story we received a short while ago. Now an accident between a motor vehicle and a 3-wheeler has occurred on the Dehivala flyover. We have in fact visuals that are coming from the scene. According to our reporter at the scene, both vehicles have been destroyed in a fire that erupted following the collision between the vehicles, and a fire brigade of the Dehivala Mount Lavinia Municipal Council has been sent to douse the fire. Reports on any fatalities or injuries have not yet been reported, but we will continue to keep you updated on this incident. In more local news, Sri Lanka will kick off a reworking of part of its domestic debt next month and aims to finalize it by May, Central Bank and Treasury officials told creditors during a virtual presentation.
On Thursday, Sri Lanka held an investor presentation in order to explain the current macroeconomic situation in Sri Lanka and outline the key pillars and objectives of the IMF program, as well as the next steps with regard to the engagement with creditors. A statement by Governor and Secretary to the Treasury after the virtual investor presentation noted that Sri Lanka is also facing a significant external financing gap over the IMF program period, and that this financing gap will have to be covered through new external funding and external debt service relief. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka said the authorities are also exploring options for a domestic debt optimization operation aimed at liquidity relief while preserving financial stability to avoid further eroding of Sri Lanka's repayment capacity. It is envisaged that this DDO will be conducted on a voluntary basis and be based on Sri Lanka's consultations with major treasury bonds holders.
The police special task force arrested a suspect with 10,150 kilograms of dust tea unsuitable for consumption on Wednesday. The Sri Lanka Police Special Task Force said that a man was arrested from Buvalikada following a tip-off that he was in possession of a large haul of dust tea. The raid was carried out by the team headed by Commanding Officer of the Gampola Base, Chief Inspector PMNK Udaraba. There has been an increase in social media profiles being hacked or prominent figures being impersonated as of late. Newsfirst spoke to several people who had to deal with this issue, and this is what they had to say.
In recent days, we have seen many fake accounts impersonating others or accounts getting hacked on social media, including prominent figures. Newsfirst reached out to Meta, the parent company of Instagram and Facebook, but were yet to receive a response. This is what Dhanuvina Sithambi had to say about being impersonated on social media.
In the last few weeks, I've had multiple accounts being created of mine, and I know they are all fake. And what is most shocking is the fact that it's your immediate profile picture, and your last 4 to 5 posts end up being on that fake account, and people tend to believe that it is you.
Former MP Hirunika Premachandra's official page was also hacked. This is what she had to say.
We found out that group of people from another country, they normally monitor these high-ranked profiles in these countries. I mean, in India, in Pakistan, in these South Asian countries. They monitor the, people, the audience, and the, growth of the page, and then they send you a private message.
Meta has been taking down hundreds of fake accounts globally which were used to spread political propaganda. Newsfirst also spoke to an expert on the matter regarding measures social media users can take to secure their social media accounts and avoid being hacked. When creating a social media profile, users are advised to make the profile themselves and avoid sharing the password and other personal details with a third party. Using two-factor authentication is another way users can secure their profiles. It requires a code sent to your mobile phone in addition to the password if you are logging in from a new device. Avoid clicking on random links sent by other users, even if they are a close friend, or sending money or sharing other personal details if requested to do so. It is always advisable to send them a personal message on a different app if you are unsure of the authenticity of the message.
A court in Lahore has struck down a colonial-era sedition law which has often been used to stifle free speech and jail people who spoke out against the government.
A colonial-era sedition law has been struck down by the Lahore High Court in Pakistan, which deemed it inconsistent with the country's constitution. The verdict was significantly important for several news agencies and journalists who had previously been oppressed for reporting or expressing opinions deemed rebellious against the government, as the decision paved the way for free speech for several politicians and prominent figures who had faced prior charges under this law. The law was used by the government against political opponents, including former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who faces over 100 cases, including sedition charges, for organizing mass rallies to demand national elections. The decision by Justice Shahid Karim on a petition filed by citizens against the law will apply nationwide unless the Supreme Court overturns it.
Donald Trump became the first current or former US president ever indicted on criminal charges when a grand jury in the state of New York indicted him on Thursday on 30 charges of business fraud, including hush money payments to an adult film actress.
Trump is alleged to have paid an adult film actress $138,000 through his attorney for her to stay silent regarding the alleged relationship prior to his becoming president. He served from 2017 to 2020 before losing a re-election bid to current President Joe Biden. Trump denies the allegations. He is expected to appear in court next Tuesday for arraignment. Trump this week officially announced his candidacy for the 2024 election from the Republican Party. Trump issued a statement in response, calling the indictment political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history.
Sri Lanka failed to snatch the 8th spot in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Super League table after succumbing to a defeat against New Zealand in the 3rd ODI in Hamilton. New Zealand won the 3-match ODI series 2-0.
Calling it right at the toss, Sri Lankan captain Dasun Shanaka opted to bat first in the crucial encounter. But the Sri Lankan batters failed to fire yet again, struggling against the pace and bounce of the New Zealand bowlers. Matt Henry, Henry Shipley and Daryl Mitchell were all outstanding with the ball, as Sri Lanka huffed and puffed to cross the 150-run mark. For Sri Lanka, Pathum Nishanka's 57 of 64, Dasun Chanaka's 31 and Chamika Karunaratne's 24 were the only batters to show any form of resistance. The visitors were bowled out for 157 in 41.3 overs. In reply, New Zealand's chase got off to a rocky start as they lost 3 wickets within the first 7 overs. 4 of their batters, Chad Bowes, Tom Bundle and Daryl Mitchell and Tom Latham, failed to reach the double-digit mark. But Will Young and Henry Nichols played vital knocks to get the hosts over the line. The pair established a partnership of 100 runs, with Young scoring 86 and Nichols 44 to seal a 6-wicket win for New Zealand. With the victory in Hamilton, New Zealand secured a 2-0 win in the 3-match ODI series. With this loss, Sri Lanka will now travel to Zimbabwe in June to compete in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup qualifier for the first time since 1979.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jana Ratnayaka. Take care, stay safe and have yourself a great weekend.